Ladies and gentlemen, Magnus Carlsen is no longer world chess champion. If you know anything about the world and the game of chess, you'll know over the past few weeks that two of the best players in the world, in Nepo and Ding from Russia and Ding from China, have been locked in a very intense battle to see who will become the new leader of the world of chess, the new world chess champion. So happens this match was so tight and so back and forth, they actually ended up tying at the end of the regular format of the championship, so they had to go to a tiebreak. So in this video, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'm going to show you a recap of the very end of this tiebreak and show you the end result of what happened, because it was wild. We got one of the most clutch and awesome moments we've seen in a World Chess Championship to date. So before we get into the video proper, consider giving a like, subscribing to the page, commenting. It really means the most, and I love hearing feedback from you guys. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so we get Nepo with the white pieces, and we get Ding with the black pieces. So then we get an e4, e5, knight f3, excuse me, knight c6, and then we get a bishop b5. So we're back to a Spanish. We've seen a lot of these in this this match so far. And we get a6. He's kicking the bishop away, so then Nepo plays bishop a4, just moving his bishop out of danger. We get knight f6. We get castles, bishop b7, typical stuff so far. And then we get d3. b5 here. Ding is striking out at the bishop and forcing it back to b3. Then we get a d6, a4, some typical Spanish ideas so far. And then we get bishop d7, h3, maybe preventing this knight from coming in, really controlling these squares that this light square bishop might want to come to. Maybe there's ideas of him pinning and getting this knight into this d4 square. So Jan doesn't like that, so he plays h3, and then we get castles for black, and then now we get bishop e3, trying to maybe control this d4 square a little bit more, and then now finally we get knight a5, which is a typical idea in these kind of positions, trying to force the light square bishop back or trade it off if they can. So he ends up playing it back, so Nepo ends up playing the bishop back to a2. And now finally we get takes. Ding has won a pawn, but at the same time it's double isolated rook pawns, which isn't really the best, you know. So now we get knight of c3 attacking this pawn, maybe at some point in the future once this bishop moves. And now we get rook over to b8 attacking this pawn. Now this is a very interesting move by Nepo. You'd think, like, what is he doing? He's undeveloping his bishop. He's got it behind these two pawns. This pawn is still undefended. Like, what's the idea here? Really, I mean, it's kind of strange, honestly, and for many reasons. But one of the main ideas, you know, is we're now attacking this a4 pawn. Now that this bishop is moved, this rook is seeing this pawn. And then later, maybe you can still move it back. But that's kind of the main idea, is take that a4 pawn. So now Ding is like, you can't take my pawn. Like, I'm not giving it up, pretty much. And so here, Nepo plays b3, which is striking at this pawn, adding in another attacker, and then maybe preparing to get the knight out of the way. Eventually, you're going to open up this bishop. And if he takes, he can't take because he loses his knight, so he can't really take, and you're going to win this pawn back. So now we get Ding striking back with c5. There could be some issues with that. It maybe makes more of a hole in this d5 square, but Nepo can't really exploit that right now, and it's kind of restricting this bishop right now. So now we finally get takes on a4 with the knight, and then knight c6 back. Knight c3, which is considered an accuracy by the engine. I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, this is not bad to contest this square and everything, but maybe there's some more active plans that Nepo could have gone for. Oh, I guess I see why possibly you're kind of keeping this pawn from moving, and really, if this bishop wants to ever be active, we need to get these pawns up. So now Ding, because this pawn was hanging, he pushes his pawn up to a5, and then we get knight back to d2, maybe thinking about pushing this pawn to f4, expanding on the king side, maybe moving his knight back around, just basically readjusting his pieces here. And then we get bishop e6, knight c4, like I said, rearranging his pieces, and then now here we get d5, which may be premature. We'll have to see. At this point, we get Nepo taking this pawn, and you have to take it. I mean, you're hitting both the pieces and everything, but at this point, it's gonna help him playing d5. Ding, that is. It kind of helps him get his pieces out. You're gonna be able to play this at some point. But we get knight takes, and then bishop comes back defending this knight, and then we get knight takes and then bishop takes, which according to the engine it's completely equal. But I think I'd rather have black in this position because this bishop is just so awkward back here. But we keep going, and here Ding takes the bishop, or was that, yeah, that takes the knight, excuse me, on c4, and then we get b takes c4, which is very interesting to me because it's like, how is this bishop ever getting out? You know, it's just completely stonewalled by these pawns. But he wants to take toward the center, you know, and then we get bishop back, and then we get this move bishop d2, which is maybe some ideas of it eventually expanding up here, getting this bishop more active. You're putting this bishop on a better square. Right now black has good control over this pawn, so this bishop isn't really doing much here. And we get bishop over, adding more support to this pawn. And here now Nepo begins his plan of unburying this bishop. Eventually, if this pawn move can ever get played, this bishop's going to come alive. So here, Ding is not concerned whatsoever. He decides to play f5, which is really his kind of way of saying, hey, screw your draw, I'm going for the win here. And so that's a very aggressive move. And in some ways, excuse me, I had a little coffee there. In some ways, it's one of those moves, it can be kind of weakening. So you're saying if you don't win this game, you're going to lose this game. So you're not really going for the draw if you're going to play f5. So we get rook e1, lining up the rook on the queen, hitting this pawn, putting some pressure there. And we get rook over, because you really don't want Nepo to be able to play this d4 move and open up the bishop. And here we get rook a2, which it seems kind of strange, but it actually can really help lend support to this 7th rank if we ever get any open files with these pawn breaks coming up. It's actually a very genius defensive move, and it basically allows his queen to move, because let's think about this. If the position's about to open, this bishop right here is going to be undefended if the queen ever moves. So he's just preemptively, before anything even happens, he's defending this bishop. So these are the kind of moves that grandmasters make that we don't necessarily see or even think about playing during our games. This kind of moves like rook a2, preemptively defending. And then we get queen g6, just preparing to attack on the king side. And then we get queen over to e2. And then now we get queen d6, g3, maybe trying to prevent this f4 move. And then we get rook d8, and then queen f3. And in this way, he's able to hold everything. You're further preventing this push. You're keeping this queen in place, because if the queen ever moves the wrong square, we're going to take this knight. And now we get e4. No fear from Ding whatsoever. He's trying to open the position. Let's say takes. That's why this rook is important that was here, because he wouldn't be able to take here at all if the queen was here and this rook wasn't here. But maybe the thinking is you take, and then this rook's going to be open, so that could be a danger. But we get takes. And here, instead of taking back with the pawn, Ding elects to put his knight on e5. Hitting the queen, attacking this pawn, making more threats to white's king. And we get queen back to g2, which is a very good defensive move. I mean, you don't want to move your queen too far away where you can get hit and away from the action. And this f-file is about to open up, and it can get really dangerous if this queen wanders away too far. So he plays queen g2. We get knight d3, hitting this rook, just further infiltrating the position. You're sort of making possible threats of taking, hitting this pawn. So kind of precarious position for Ding, or for Nepo if he's not careful. And we get bishop takes, queen takes, and then we finally get pawn takes. So luckily this rook is defended by the bishop. We get rook takes, bishop takes. And Nepo's kind of in a little bit of a ball here. He's just curled up defending, but his position's all right. And it actually, according to the engine, white's a little bit better if they play the best move. Nepo plays rook a1, which wasn't really the best move. The engine really recommends rook d2. Maybe you want to get your rook up here, make it more active. The rook is a lot less active here on this file, and That's probably what the engine's not liking. So we get rook back to a1, and then we get rook takes. And here, the queen does have this check, but it doesn't really do much. Ding can always bring his queen back. You're never gonna sack your rook for this pawn, so it's kind of pointless. So just because you see a check doesn't mean you have to give one. We get bishop d2, kind of maybe putting some pressure in the future. Now we get queen up here to c6, just infiltrating, hitting this bishop. And then we get rook back, just protecting his 7th rank. You know, defending against any possible bishop takes ideas. And then we get rook over to e1, and then king comes up to the h7 square. We get bishop e3, hitting this pawn. Queen could take, but if queen takes, then queen takes, and we win back the pawn, and it's pretty equal. So bishop comes down, putting more pressure on this pawn. Queen comes up here, making a counter threat. So this is defending the pawn sort of tactically, because let's say queen takes, you could take this pawn. If queen takes, you take the rook. So bishop takes, and then we get rook over, pinning the bishop. And we get rook down to f6, which is a great move according to you know, the engine, and according to these annotations that I have pulled up. And yeah, rook f6 is a move just trying to make your rook more aggressive. Maybe you're gonna get your rook over here at some point and actually start making tangible threats to white's king. So it's the only really one. It's that what they're saying. I'm looking at some of these annotations to try to help me understand these games a little bit. And from what I understand, without some of these moves, I mean, you're not being aggressive enough. So we have queen to d7, and then we get queen to e2. Just really getting up in the white king's face. And this bishop is really the only defender left of this king at this point. And then we get queen d5, and then we get bishop over, protecting these pawns, keeping everything in place. And then we get check. And then now the king moves back. We get queen d5, king h7, queen e4. And at this point, many people watching thought that it was just going to be another draw. We're going to go to the blitz format of this, because this is the last game. Whoever wins this game wins, but if it draws, we're going to a blitz portion of the tie breaks. And so after this repetition, many people are thinking, okay, just king back, and we're going to repeat, and it's going to be a draw. But here, Ding is like, no, I do not want to draw. And he plays what? What does he play? He plays rook g6, which is a very, very bold move. You're moving directly into a pin, and it's very scary. I mean, if you look at it, it might just look like a blunder, because the rook is pinned, and then white can immediately start going h4, h5. And if this pawn gets to h5, with this queen still staring at this rook, that rook's gone, and black's in big trouble and is going to lose the game. But it's also an aggressive move as well. So this is just a very bold and ice in his veins kind of move from Ding. And at this point, Ding only had about a minute on his clock, a minute and a half. So that was his indication of like, hey, if you didn't think I was serious earlier, I do not want to draw. I'm going for the win. We had queen f5, which is not the best, because now at this point, black can just start advancing his c pawn, because the queen's given up control of this square, and now the rook's the only one defending. So you can push the c pawn up. Oh, didn't mean to go that far. We get h4, and now we get queen e3, excuse me, which is the only move, because you have to get this queen traded off. Otherwise, you have to deal with this push, and you're going to lose your rook. So the queen moves. Now that pin is not an issue. We get queen over attacking the queen. Rook over attacking the queen, excuse me. Now we get queen g4. And this pawn just keeps on pushing. The closer it gets to this back rank, the more dangerous it becomes. Many people say, like, when pawns get to the 6th rank, especially if they're connected, and you can almost say that these are 3 connected pass pawns. This bishop's almost acting like one. They're basically equal to a minor piece in some cases, even more. So we get rook over to attack the queen. Queen comes back, really wanting a queen trade, because these 2 pawns are going to be very hard to stop for white if we ever get the queens off the board. So white comes back. Nepo does not want to trade. But now we get rook over to c6 and hitting this queen and really threatening to push the pawn again. White doesn't really have much to do here. We get queen a8. And now we get rook over, looking for a rook trade now. Because if you look at this, white controls this square, and then the bishop is going to be able to come over it in some variations and protect this square. So you're really threatening to kind of come down and promote here if you get the rooks off the board. We get rook takes. If you play, you could have played c2 right now, actually. If you look at this variation, c2 just wins. Because if you try to come back and checkmate, we just promote to a queen with check. Bishop takes. We get rook takes. King h2, and then we get queen c6. Giving this king an escape square and also threatening mating ideas right here. So you could really just push c2 right away. But instead in the game, we get rook takes d6. We get queen takes d6. Queen e4, the check. We get queen g6 blocking the check. Queen c4, queen b1, king h2, a4. These pawns keep on moving. Can't take the bishop because the queen's still guarding. We get bishop d4, a3. If you take, he's just trying to get rid of some of these pawns. But basically we keep going. We get queen c7, and then queen comes back, just completely guarding the king. This is a one last ditch mating effort. You're just gonna push your pawns down the board. There's not much the white can do to stop them. Queen c4, we get c2. Queen not only defending the king, but defending this pawn. We get bishop e3, just trying to defend this promotion square. King g2 coming over. h5. Really just locking down the pawns over here on the king side. King f1. There's not much the white can do here at this point. According to the engine, it's about like +2. You get g4. H takes g4. h5. Queen f5. Queen d5. And at this point, most people knew it was pretty much over. It's a little bit last gasp of desperation for Nepo. Especially here with this f4 move, just lashing out. And Ding just ignores it. I mean, you look at you have these two pawns. You can't stop both of them. We get queen down, taking that pawn. But now we get bishop takes f4. And at this point, Nepo resigned, and the game is over. And if you look at that, we're threatening to take this pawn. You can't stop the pawn and prevent your bishop from being taken. It's an easy winning endgame for black. And so Ding becomes the World Chess Champion after all of that. He was down multiple times in the World Chess Championship during different games, but he always came back to win it. And from the start, he's been an underdog. He barely even qualified at first. He had to go through hoops. There was at one point he needed 26 games in a month of classical to even qualify to reach the candidates. And then clawed his way back from second to last place in the candidates to second place. Beat Hikaru to clinch second place. Magnus Carlsen dropped out, and then he's just to even get a chance to play in this game. And here he comes back, declines the draw, wins the game. Just an amazing. I mean, if we go back to rook g6, I mean, how many of you guys would play this move? Let's keep going. In a game where they're playing rapid, so they don't have much time at all. In a game with so little time, where you could easily just take the draw and move on, he plays rook g6, voluntarily putting himself in. Like, how many of you guys would play this move? Like, this is a very tough move to play in these circumstances, let alone a World Chess Championship. So really, after all of that, I mean, Ding really deserves this win, in my opinion. Great chess player. I even called it, if you look back at one of my older videos. It was sort of a clickbait kind of thing, but I made the right prediction. At that point, Ding had just tied the match up, but here he wins. And so we have a new person on top of the chess world. And yeah, it's pretty exciting time for the chess community. I mean, it was a great match, and exciting things on the horizon. But I want to appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good one, and take care. Peace.